Hi and welcome to our latest video on how to make apple crumble. This is a simple, delicious dessert which you can make using ingredients that you can easily find in your kitchen. So there they are on the screen. However, I'll go through them as we go through the video. The first thing you need is a scale. So I've got a simple one here which will help you measure out your ingredients. You need large cooking apples. You can use any apple. However, these are good because they've got a bitter taste to them. I also use salted butter because this makes it easier for me not to add additional salt. I've got plain flour, just a simple one from Tesco or any other supermarket, and also caster sugar. And those are your main ingredients that you need to make apple crumble. So the first thing you want to do is to peel all the apples and slice them to roughly 1 centimeter thickness. So what you'll find if you are to make this dessert is that the thinner or the skinnier or the smaller you slice your apples, that then affects how quickly or how quick your cooking time is, but otherwise it doesn't make much of a big difference to how it tastes. So I've sliced the first one here, so I'll show you the thickness as what I'm mentioning. So I prefer to cut mine a little bit smaller than what many recommend because it makes it easier for them to cook quicker, and I find it easier to line them in the pan. Now that all your apples are cut up, so the next thing you want to do is to grease your pan. Some recipes will tell you different techniques or different steps to take at this point. Some of them will mix the apples with some sugar. I don't do that because I think there's quite a lot of sugar in the crumble, so I didn't want to add an additional sugar to the mixture because it just becomes too much for me. So when lining your pan, you need to make sure that the bottom is fully covered. And if they are not the right, shape and size, you can always slice them smaller so as to fit the gaps as well. I will be doing it on here. So there isn't a lot of science to this. It's just making sure that you cover that base. That way when you put your crumble mixture on top, it doesn't immediately fall to the bottom. So the next step is to mix flour, sugar and butter. So the one thing that I would need to point out at this point is make sure that your butter is cold, because that makes it easier to handle and to get the crumble texture. If your butter is starting to melt or melted, it will be difficult to get the crumble because you just end up with a dough. Hurry up, Simba, why are you doing that? I don't know why I was taking so much time in measuring out the ingredients. Look how slow he was with the sugar. Finally. Oh, he's still at it. Oh, here we go. Cool. So the next thing I did was to measure out my butter. So to give you a recap of the ingredients in this mixture is 175 grams of flour, 110 grams of butter, and 110 grams of sugar. So the sugar and the butter were the same, in terms of ratio of weight. Here I was in two minds of whether to measure the butter separate and then put it in the bowl or to put it back into the bowl. So I decided to go with the easy option. I was being really lazy. So the good thing is here in the UK, the butter does come with a little bit of a measuring scale on the packaging. So sometimes you can actually be able to do it without having to weigh it. But in this instance, I did weigh my butter. So the next step here was to cut it into small pieces. So if you were to recreate this recipe, my advice would be to cut up your butter separate and then just pop it in after it's already been cut. Otherwise, you don't want to be doing it the way I did. But it does the job. Okay, so once you're done and you've got your small pieces, this is the part where you get dirty. You just pop in your hands, using your hands, you crumble it up. Take your time, but do not be too slow, otherwise your butter will start to warm up and you end up with a dough like I mentioned before. So you need to work quickly, but do not rush either. What you're looking for at the end of this is a breadcrumb like consistency. So I'll show you closer to the screen once I get to where I needed to be. It is quite messy, so a larger bowl is probably also advised at this point. Also, if you are hearing weird background noises, that's me swallowing. I'm new to this game. Eventually I'll have some nice equipment which will make it easier for me to make videos, but for now I use the basic one. Okay, so now you see the consistency I was looking for, and it's almost like breadcrumbs. That's what you're after. The next step is to just pour it all over your apple mixture. It's not a mixture, it's just apples, ignore me, but you get the gist. So once it's on top of your apples, make sure that it's evenly spread and that you don't have any holes or any gaps. Once you're happy with the leveling, then you want to pop this in the oven. Depending on how big you've cut your apples, it will determine how long you need it to be in the oven for. So this, I think I had it in the oven for about 35-40 minutes, but you will be able to tell by putting a knife or a skewer, and as soon as it goes through the apples and you've also achieved that crumb like consistency on top where it's you've got the crumble, then it's ready. So this is what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. You can easily run a fork through the crumble on the top, so it's almost like crumbled up bread, shortbread. That's what you're after. So to give you also another pointer based on how I did in this version, you need to use a smaller diameter pan. Mine was quite big, so it meant that my crumb was spread out further than it would normally be, whereas if you use a small radius, then it means your crumb is piled up, so you get a bit more depth, whereas I had a little bit more width. So the best way to serve this one is with either custard or ice cream or both. So in our household, we like to do it with both. So just make sure that your ice cream is not touching your custard, because the custard will be hot. So we prefer the one from Audi as well as Haagen-Dazs ice cream. So the combination of those three will give you a bowl which looks like that, and is so yummy. So there you have it, apple crumble with Haagen-Dazs ice cream and custard. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy it. I'll put the ingredients in the bottom of the video so that you can be able to copy it and do it yourself at home. Enjoy.